Rangers in 1993 were truly the successor to Ninja Turtles. It's fair to say that nobody expected it to be as big as it was, considering it was bringing in concepts from Japan. When we're going over Power Rangers, we'll illustrate how much of an actual mess the original series was versus how it became later on. Ironically, it's because of how much of a mindfuck the old Power Rangers was that made it the most memorable. And many fans who are now in their 30s often forget the series continued on after Mighty Morphin. If you're a longtime fan, you're not going to learn anything new from me, but you will get some of my experiences and perspective during the early seasons. The concepts involving low-budget action scenes with people dressed in rubber-suited monsters and toy robots wasn't new in Japan. The Super Sentai franchise, a show about a team of masked spandex-wearing superheroes, had been going on since 1975. Kyoryu Sentai Zyuranger, the series that adapted into Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, was actually the 16th season. As such, the time-honored tradition of Power Rangers was to use stock footage from the respective Sentai, mainly the battles involving the Rangers and their robotic weapons, known as Zords against evil opponents, which of course could merge into one big Zord, the Megazord. But to make the show more American, it was interspliced with footage shot with American actors portraying their respective characters. Of course, older kids at the time had thought, "This is stupid! It's so dumb, there is no way this will take off." But to everyone's surprise, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers became a hit. It quickly took over as the flagship kids show and sucked many kids in. I know, because I'm one of them. Each of the 5 Rangers had their main quirks, and I remember liking Jason the most initially. Hell, my sister had a crush on him. Zach, I always thought was cool, and I did like Billy's inventions. Pretty much every boy my age and above had a crush on Kimberly the Pink Ranger because she was the girly girl of the group. But not so much on Trini the Yellow Ranger, who was probably the least developed of the original 5. But let's not forget the real stars of the show, Bulk and Skull. With the show often getting repetitive and formulaic, we'd still watch to see what funny antics were Bulk and Skull going to do. The early Rangers, the so-called teenagers with attitude, were just a bunch of goody-goods, all getting straight A's, all teaching classes at the community center, participating in charities, preaching teamwork this, hard work that, RECYCLE recycle. Wrong show. Bulk and Skull often saved episodes from being total bores. Because we didn't watch TV to be preached about environment, we wanted to be entertained. Really didn't make sense to have the superheroes beat the crap out of a monster, but then do a PSA about violence not being the answer. Yeah, we can make fun of the costumes, the obvious budget constraints, the writing and acting of the earlier episodes, the repetitive use of the same stock footage for every major battle. We can all make fun of the accidental racism, which reportedly was an oversight and wasn't realized until a few episodes in. But you know what? That sure hasn't stopped Walter Jones from still using his fame as the Black Ranger at convention appearances. I can tell you from the perspective of an engaged 7-year-old and a 31-year-old looking back, we didn't care. We knew it was stupid. We knew it didn't make sense all the time. The floating head in the tube is a wizard in a time warp? Okay. Rita Repulsa's mouth never syncs with the audio?
Oh, you think you can stop me, do you?
Alright. The Rangers appearing to transport from Mojave Desert to Tokyo whenever they morphed? Okay. The Yellow Ranger being played by a girl yet clearly having a alright, okay. Boy! We didn't know Trini's Japanese counterpart was a boy named Boy. We loved the action, we loved the villains, we loved the characters, we loved Bulk and Skull. And another thing I must mention is the music, composed by Ron Wasserman.
And so you fell into the danger, and you're all alone tonight.
Cannot be forgotten. This was definitely a show that left a taste for heavy metal music later on. Once Tommy Oliver, the Green Ranger, hit the scene, that is what got my interest to skyrocket. It literally turned into the Tommy Oliver show featuring the Power Rangers. Maybe it helped that green was my favorite color, and Tommy felt different from the cast. Plus, the Dragon Zord could rival all the other Zords, and either form other Zords or even a bigger Zord. Now, if I was just a tad older, I would have had a better understanding of the continuity involving the post-Green Candle pre-return of the Old Friend episodes, which involved Tommy losing his Green Ranger powers, being written off the show, and then gaining them back in a big triumphant return, complete with his iconic ponytail. But because I was 7, I remember tuning in and then turning the TV off if I saw Tommy wasn't there, and then sometimes I'd watch it anyway and then wonder, wait, why is Jason summoning the Dragon Sword? How does he have the Dragon Dagger? Without question, Tommy and his Sentai counterpart named Burai were crazy popular with fans at the time. Thanks to the internet and the Sentai being readily available to watch, it's now common knowledge that the Green Ranger stock footage ran out because he dies in Zyuranger. Clearly remembering how traumatized kids were when Optimus Prime died in 1986, Saban simply wrote Tommy off instead. Reportedly, both fans of Zyuranger and Power Rangers sent letters in droves demanding the Green Ranger character brought back. Japan took the high road, trying to teach children that anyone, even superheroes, can die. Power Rangers, on the other hand, well... The first season went on for 60 episodes, but it was only scheduled to last 40, ending with the 2-part episode Doomsday, where footage of the Final Four Zyuranger episodes were being used. The episode even felt like a finale of sorts, with things getting grim and the Rangers overcoming their most difficult opponents, one of which in the Sentai was the freaking Devil, and Tommy even cameos at the end of it. But because the show got so popular, Saban requested Toei to make additional exclusive Japanese Zyuranger footage that was only used for Power Rangers. Fans call this the Zyu2 footage, and it's this footage that made it possible for Tommy to return as the Green Ranger, extending the first season into 60 episodes and keeping Tommy around into season 2. But if you think the first season was a mess, the second season was even more of a mess. They started using footage from Gosei Sentai Dairanger, which had different Zords, and their Ranger color scheme didn't quite fit in with the old Dino costumes. Because Saban wanted to continue the Mighty Morphin brand as long as possible, they said, screw it, we'll keep using the remaining Zyu2 footage, spice it up with the Dairanger Zords, and make new American footage with the original costumes when needed, proving that Tommy really didn't need to be written out in Season 1. So yes, Season 2 at one point had stock footage from 2 Sentai spliced and diced with American footage. Season 2 was where we were introduced to Lord Zed, who was an entirely American creation for Power Rangers, to help compensate for the fact that they ran out of Japanese reader footage, only for her character to come back, played by the actual actress who voiced her. As the Rangers were now using Zords of Dairanger, the new Thunder Zords obviously couldn't be seen battling the remaining Zyu2 monsters. There actually were some editing mistakes where Zyu2 monsters were still seen hitting the original Megazord. Whoops. And of course, Tommy's Green Ranger powers ran out again. Damn, that stock footage always running out on us. Ultimately leading him to change from green into white, and being declared the new leader. Only because the White Ranger costume from Dairanger resembled the Zyuranger costumes enough, this tactic worked, and us kids didn't care. We still loved it, and Tommy was now a permanent part of the cast. But just after the switch, the actors who played Jason, Trini, and Zack left the show over a pay dispute. So to solve the problem, they introduced the characters Rocky, Adam, and Aisha to fill in the 3 roles. Do you know what they did to aid in the transition? They used stock footage of their own actors to try and make it look like they were still around. Wow! In June of 1995, the movie was released as a summer blockbuster. And the main thing it had above everything else was a budget. The costumes were made to look a little less spandexy, and they looked cooler. We can laugh at this movie now for the horrible CGI being used in place of the spandex and toy box costumes, and the fact the finishing blow is a kick to the balls. It is a dumb, poorly written movie, but it did its job as a cash grab, was a hit with kids, and it made a lot of money. I remember loving the movie a lot as a kid, but each viewing gets progressively worse. Later on, Season 3 came out in the fall of 1995. As a kid, I remember seeing what I thought was the ninja powers in the Zords from the movie, Yet, whenever they morphed into the Ranger form, they simply went back to their old spandex dino suits. Where are all the costumes from the movie? Now, I know now the movie had no connection with the show continuity whatsoever. The show's change into the Ninja and Shogun Zords was because of a different Sentai, Kakuranger. The third season saw the departure of Kimberly and her replacement by Kat, but it was during this time when a lot of kids were losing interest. Between 1993 and 1995, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers had already done over 140 episodes. With all that time, you'd think the characters would have developed or something.
Nope.
The main cast stayed as two-dimensional as they ever were, and each replacement never really added anything new. Sure, I love Tommy, but aside from his arcs involving losing or gaining his powers, his relationship with Kimberly, and his role as the Sixth Ranger or the leader, he didn't really have much else to offer. Kimberly also stood out because of her relationship with Tommy. Other than that, the Rangers didn't change that much. They were just there, which is a shame because they were decent actors. Sure, the action scenes were always entertaining, but with each episode always repeating the same power-up and transition clips, yeah, anyone would get tired of that. It also didn't help that at the time, new episodes would air one after the other on weekdays and weekends, which could be as many as 10 to 13 new episodes you had to follow within a month's time. This was the days before you could binge watch on Netflix. You actually had to tune in to the correct channel at the correct time to make sure you saw the episode, or you'd miss it and have to catch it in reruns. During the third season, largely due to peer pressure and my interest shifting to other TV shows, I wasn't following Power Rangers as much. On the peer pressure side of things, I can tell you from my experience in first grade that my circle of friends at one elementary school were all fans of Power Rangers. But when I moved to a different school in the fall of 1995 for second grade, for some odd reason, every kid my age in second grade was telling me,
Power Rangers is for babies.
well, the peer pressure was a big reason why I suddenly claimed to hate Power Rangers when I really didn't. I was just trying to fit in, but I also do think it was because I couldn't keep track anymore. I could never tell when Fox Kids would show a rerun or air a new episode, unless you were told you just didn't know. At the time, due to all the multi-part episodes, any new episode in the third season really couldn't hold my attention long enough to want to tune in the next day to see the next part. The world of Nickelodeon was also just taking over at the time for me. I was no longer watching Fox Kids at all. Because of this, I missed out on the Alien miniseries, Zeo and onwards. And after that, there were definitely times when I'd put in the old VHS tapes and think, how could I watch this? But I never stopped hating it, and I'd still play the Sega Genesis game a lot. So I still embrace it as a huge part of my childhood. Hell, I wouldn't collect the 20th anniversary SH figure arts if I still hated the show. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers officially ended in 1996. But as far as general pop culture was concerned, Power Rangers was just Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Over the next 2 decades, no matter how different the theme and the name of the series was, it was still that show about dinosaur robots and teenagers in spandex diamond suits versus Rita Repulsa. This happens with just about every franchise or brand that evolves. Once you add your place in pop culture, most people are going to remember the basic elements. As your franchise changes with new incarnations, chances are you won't retain the same level of popularity you once had, and your fan base tends to dwindle. I joke about this all the time when it comes to Metallica.
Yeah, man, I love Metallica! Exit Night!
Awesome! Do you love Orion?
Yeah, man, I like Orion.
Great. Sing me the chorus to it.
How does that go again?
It's an instrumental, dumbass! But just because people aren't dedicated fans who know every song, doesn't mean they're not fans who enjoy the band. So the same goes with Power Rangers. If you're a fan of Power Rangers who does enjoy the later series, then awesome! But if you're a fan of Power Rangers that hates that people only remember Mighty Morphin, well, as a Metallica fan, I feel your pain. But the fact is, Power Rangers after Mighty Morphin wasn't the same phenomenon it was back in 1993 to 95. Despite some of the later series having much more critical acclaim, Power Rangers was now something that the targeted age groups were highly receptive of, but usually grew out of after a year or two.
Oh, you really like that new cast and you really want to see where they're going next? Well, that's too bad they're not coming back.
aside from maybe a crossover next season. Oh, but you really don't like that new set of Rangers. Well, that's too bad. You're gonna have to wait an entire season.
You know what? I'm gonna go watch something else. Yes, I know that this video is mainly tackling Mighty Morphin, but that's because I don't have time to go over all the other series in detail. If you really want somebody who does that, go watch Linkara's History of Power Rangers. But because Power Rangers has kept going and going and going, it obviously has done something right. Thanks to the internet and available media, newer fans who can't get enough of Power Rangers are able to go back to the prior seasons and obsess over the franchise way more than I ever could back in the 90s. In 2017, Lionsgate and Saban decided to try their hand at another live-action Power Rangers movie. Attempting to attract fans of the Mighty Morphin era, it would have actors playing modern versions of the original characters, including Bryan Cranston as Zordon and Elizabeth Banks playing Rita Repulsa. And you know, this time the teenagers with attitude weren't all goody-goods. Finally, we were going to get the movie that Power Rangers deserves. A good movie, or so we thought. Yours truly did see it in the theaters the day it came out, and I remember the only time people clapped was the uncredited cameo from Jason David Frank and Amy Jo Johnson. Where the movie suffers is a lack of action due to the attempts to establish the characters in a long, drawn-out story. I will say that I do like how the characters are, but they tried too hard to make it a serious, gritty movie. A serious, gritty movie about teenagers in special diamond suits commanding giant dinosaur robots against Miri from Zack and Miri Make a Porno. It's not a bad movie. It's not great. It's okay. Maybe they should have focused on giving us a fun action movie rather than simply a prologue. Oh, don't worry, all the action and everything fun about Power Rangers is in the next movie. Thanks for your money. See you in the sequel. Lionsgate was so confident that this would become a big movie that they announced a shitload of sequels before the movie was released, with Saban claiming that Lionsgate had a 6-movie story arc. Whether it was the poor reception of the trailers, the mixed reviews of the actual film, whatever the case, the reception and box office results reminded the studios that most people really don't care for Power Rangers anymore. At least, not as a gritty reboot. Because Saban's Power Rangers didn't do as well as planned in the box office, no sequel has been officially worked on. But while Power Rangers may be failing in the box office, it's really taking off in the world of comics. Since 2016, Boom Studios has been making a series based on the original Mighty Morphin show, which in canon begins just after Tommy has joined the team as the Green Ranger and goes into an alternate timeline. The tone of it is much more mature, and having read the books myself, I can safely say the story and animation is awesome. It actually makes the Rangers look as badass as we used to imagine them as kids. Now, the comics are still fresh and outgoing, so I don't want to give too much away. If you have not checked out the comic series by Boom Studios, trust me when I say you'll like it, even if you don't like the TV series anymore. The Shattered Grid storyline in these comics was actually part of the 25th anniversary celebration for Power Rangers as a franchise. The comics show no sign of stopping, and they continue to be critically acclaimed by fans and readers alike. From a phenomenon that was birthed out of a simple adaptation of a Japanese show to an ongoing franchise that shows no signs of quitting, you can always count on two things. The TV series will continue, and you can never get that old theme song out of your head.